Hello and welcome along once again to the Irish Rally Podcast, once again in association with Tree Rock Display Signage Brandon. We thank them for their continued support throughout the Irish Tarmac Championship. We are here to preview the Cork 20 Rally, and we'll delve into that in a few minutes' time. We'll be chatting to Kevin O'Riordan, the COC. And a little bit later on, we're going to take a different route because the High Performance Director of the Motorsport Ireland Rally Academy, Alan Heary, is going to join us and give us some tips and pointers for drivers and co-drivers in, I suppose, different pressure situations, but weather in recent times proven to be very difficult among competitors, both north and south, in terms of just trying to deal with those challenges and different, I suppose, nuances and stuff. And having been all around the world with different sports people, not just in rallying, and a better man placed to give a few tips and pointers, perhaps, to some competitors. I'm going to bring in the co-host first, Anthony Nestor. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing, man?
Flying it now. And as you said, before we go into the Cork 20, we're going to turn our attention back to the Down Rally and talk a bit about the 2022 Northern Ireland Rally Championship, the McGrady Insurance Northern Ireland Rally Championship, to give it its proper title. Two friends of the podcast from last year, Johnny Greer and Brian Crawford, are joining us once again. Johnny, I just want to say congratulations, first of all, another Northern Irish Championship, and you were a happy man on Saturday.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Hi, guys.
How's Brian? How you going, Brian? Yeah, everything. Enjoying yourself. It's.
I tell you, Brian looks a lot younger on camera than he does in reality. I tell you, he's a young chap.
He's on holiday, you see, so he's all relaxed now.
Right, that's it.
He look. I can't. The feeling's not mutual. The camera does nothing for you. I'm sorry.
No, nothing. So I know the story. There last Saturday, now around 3:00, you looked at about 20 years older.
Yeah. I won't go into too much detail about what that may or may not have been about. But anyway, Johnny, talk to us, man. Like, this was incredibly tight beforehand because I think there was 4 drivers perhaps in the mix, and for various different reasons, you know, if there was no, I suppose, rounds drop coming into it, Dermot McGarty was in contention, heavily in contention, and despite the fact that there was drop rounds, he was also still heavily in contention, as was McGonigal and McLaughlin. But it was yourself, I suppose, that had to really take the bull by the horns here. Even with the drop rounds and you being in a good position, you still had a lot of work to do. But you did it, and did it in some style. So not without a little scare, though, I believe, coming down the home stretch.
Yeah, well, I sort of knew that we had to. The main objective was to finish the rally. That was the main sort of thing we had to do with the championship. But it's always easier said than done, and we did have a bit of an issue on, would have been, trying to think what stage it was now, it would have been stage 6. Nothing, probably a bit of a storm in a teacup, really, but just coming down on a narrow stretch of road, there was sort of a bit of gravel pulled out between the first and second passes that obviously wasn't there on my first run, and came in not expecting there to be gravel there, and had to commit a wee bit earlier than I hoped, and front left wheel took a bit of an impact, so sort of thought that would have been a puncher or something at that stage. But when your luck's in, your luck's in. You know, it's usually 9 times out of 10 it would have been a straight down puncher, but the tire stayed up, so as you say, thanks to Pirelli Speedline for that one. But yeah, everything just, it was one of those days where everything went well and everything worked, and you get very few days like that, so I'm just really happy it happened when it did.
Yeah, Brian, from your point of view, the rally itself, I know you're heavily involved. Deputy COC, I think, on the day. Happy with how everything progressed?
Yeah, we're getting good reports back. Kevin, everybody seems to be fairly happy, or about 99% of people that done the rally seem to be fairly happy. We're very, very, very lucky to have Kite of Forklift on board as sponsors. Very, very easy to work with. Obviously, the connection there. Lisburn, Castlereagh City Council, they were absolutely fantastic. We couldn't have asked for any better. It just worked. The only thing worked against us a wee bit was probably the weather, and that made it difficult for some of the competitors. But look, it's one of those things. I do have a lot of contacts in this rally world, but I just my contact with the weather just was not working for me. It just didn't play ball with me.
It can often not play ball with us, in fairness, Brian. But yeah, I mean, if we go back to our previous chat, Brian and Johnny, I suppose, which was probably, nearly 12 months ago at this point, we're in a completely different world. And I've not got the opportunity, I suppose, to chat to either you too much over the past couple of months. But can you give us a synopsis of the championship as a whole and how competitive it's been? Obviously, we mentioned it was tight coming into the last round, but it seems to have gauged a lot of interest this year as always, and in particular, as you say, the event at the weekend, which Adam Hall and of RallyInsight.com declared as possibly the new hidden gem.
Yeah, I think the championship this year sort of had a strong season last year. The championship being the sort of, as we talked about, being the first sort of first championship in Ireland to start again. And we had a good, strong season with a lot of competitors and a lot of competition. 2022 just carried that on and probably moved it up another step. And I think that that made it interesting and good from our side. Obviously, from a competitor side, it's always good to have good, strong entries and good numbers. And it just seemed to go stronger and stronger as the year went on. Once we got back from the short circuits back on the roads again, and everything just kind of worked. I think it was good that we did sort of compress the calendar a little bit. Obviously, the championship's now finished, but it compressed five very good rallies into one neat championship.
Mm-hmm. And from your own point of view, where does Johnny Greer go now? What's happening for the rest of the year?
We can sort of chill out for the rest of the year now, I think.
Yeah.
It's we've a few ideas of what we want to do, but just pretty much just take a couple of weeks to sort of relax a bit and then go from there and do a few rallies that we enjoy to do. With a few, we'd always like to get back on the gravel again after a while. So there's a few gravel rallies towards the end of the year we'll be looking at, things like that. But nothing's really in stone yet. But it's getting about that time of year again where you start looking at the sort of the Killarney Historic and those sort of events where you want to go and do and things like that. So we'll just take a couple of days, make a plan and go from there. But hopefully we'll get out and do a few more things before the end of the year.
Anthony, these two lads are in a hurry, so I'll let you jump in there before I let them go.
I thought it was a very telling thing as Johnny's dad. It showed the competitor involvement above on the down rally. When I see Davy Greer out, it looked like a tie wraps and he hanging banners and everyone just mucking in. It was the one thing I thought was very good about the event, that I actually spoke to Brian after it, that the road book, the quality of it was just staggering. And without even asking, you could see there was competitor input all over it. It was easily to read, extremely accurate. It was really, really good. It's a lovely atmosphere when they brought it in around the city, whereas the Aiken Centre in the past was nice. But when you bring an event into a town, it creates a different atmosphere. Yes, the weather was unkind on the day, but it certainly laid the groundwork for future because it seemed to run like clockwork. Everyone very courteous, no matter what you had, it wasn't a problem. When we arrived on, I wouldn't be overly familiar with the area. We met Jenny Frater, the secretary. Actually, you've even a few fans up there, Kevin. I met a lady, Clodagh McMurrough. She knew when I opened my mouth that I was on the podcast. She knew the voice, but not the face. And as it turned out, as the evening progressed, as the rally progressed, we had finished, and I was bringing a friend of mine there, Martin Brady. We were travelling back to Naas together that night, and I needed to get up a road which I actually didn't know was closed. And I met this young marshal at blocking the road, and rightly so, telling me I couldn't go up there, and I was trying to use my gentle powers of persuasion to no effect. But it turned out, we had a grand chat afterwards, but it turned out he ended up being a brother to the girl. He was Stephen McMurrough. They were a deadly job. But so courteous, and Brian will know me a long time. I will try my best to get down that road, hell or high water. He was smiling at me, but I still wasn't getting down there. You couldn't but compliment the guy. He was so, and I think Brian said they were a professional company. It may not necessarily be linked to the club. But my God, whether he was so professional, he was smiling away to me, but it was still smiling with that, no. But it's just, I think, in a lot of events, how you're treated, how helpful people are, the general atmosphere of the town and the area, that all is part of it. And if that's all good, it lays great foundation. And it would be, it's like Johnny said, he has a list of what's on the calendar for the rest of the year, events you like to go, and Down is certainly an event I like to go to. It ticks all the boxes for me.
Brian, that's a fair endorsement now, because you notice where this guy is like.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, well, that's true. I suppose it's the one advantage of this podcast, and we're not shy from it. If it is shite, we'll tell you. let you be under no illusion. If it's bad, you'll know.
Yeah, and if
But
it's good, you'll know as well.
You know, to be fair, you have to take your hat off to people. Like, there's
Mhm.
no point in making the effort and no one to say, "Yeah, well done, lads." It's such a small thing, and I think I saw it written. Actually, Brian might come in on this. I think I saw it written on a final instruction, advising competitors that if you meet a marsh, you beat it. Just say 2 words. Thank you. Only a small thing. Maybe I'm mixing up the rallies, but I think it was on a competitor instruction for that event.
Mm.
But the timing was excellent up there as well. They did the hands off timing that we used here during COVID, and unfortunately we went back to the old system. But they used the hands off timing, and it's so efficient. Like, it's super efficient, and Johnny will testify to that. You just pull up, hold your time card out the window, nobody touches you. They give you the thumbs up, the interest is clocking on, you go. Brilliant. Great day.
Yeah. Brian, do you want to come in on that there just before I let you go? I think Brian's connection is...
He's in shock
Under a
that
bit
I
of
get
pressure.
compliments. I don't get compliments.
It must be, yeah. Listen, lads, I will let you go because I know you're under a bit of pressure. But Johnny, well done again, and thanks to you and Brian for joining us here this evening. All right.
Yeah, thanks very much. No, thanks for having us, and thanks for the kind word, Anthony. Appreciate it.
No bother. Tis all deserved. As I said, if it's not deserved, we don't give it. But yeah, to be fair, and you know yourself, it ran like clockwork. You know as a competitor from the time you arrive out, bang, 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 you arrived on the station, it ran like clockwork.
No, I think it is. It is good from our side. Obviously, you're being involved in the rally and everything, but I'd sort of be a bit biased, maybe, obviously, but it's good to hear from somebody else that sees the way I do. And
I see Brian waving and smiling there. We'll wave and smile back. I think he's our service.
I think he's all sound, but no mic.
Yeah, something like that.
But I think it's great. The guys done a fantastic job in the club, for the rally, and hats off to everybody. I mean, for me to see what was going on behind the scenes and everything else, it's just the amount of effort putting in. As Anthony touched on, we had a few people coming in new to the club, which took on the baton in the rally and really run with it. So, yeah, I think it's been a great effort by everybody, and thanks very much to everyone that helped out.
Actually, do you know who deserves one mention before I go? Is Ian Porter. A lot of the younger guys won't know Ian Porter, but Ian Porter and me would have soldiered together back since God was a young boy. And Ian was a competitor liaison officer. But I went in to thank Jenny and staff before I left, and here was Porter surrounded by young lads, 18, 20, 22, 20 years, and they firing problems and fix this, can you fix that? And he was there and calm as ever, writing it down and taking it all in. But he's the calmest man you ever met, but does he get the job done quickly? Super efficient guy, like. But big shout out for young Porter.
There we go. Johnny, thanks a million. Mind yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
There we go. Johnny Greer and Brian Crawford. We're going to bring in Kevin O'Riordan, who's also under a bit of time pressure. How are you doing, Kevin? How's things?
Hey, Kevin. How are you doing? Hey, Anthony. You're well?
Are you sleeping in the car again?
That's right. I live in the car, boy. I live in the car. Never out of it.
As the price of hotels at the moment, sure, how could you blame him?
Absolutely. Just before we get into it there, Kevin, I'd just like to say a fair play to yourself and Anthony there for these podcasts. They're a fantastic addition every week to the rally calendar. It's something I look forward to every week. So fair play to you for the effort you put into it.
Jeez, you don't listen to this rubbish every week, do you?
But Jesus, I have to listen to it every week, Anthony. My life wouldn't be fulfilled without it.
Jeez, I thought my poor mother was the only person that would ever say that. God, I should write that down.
Anyway,
Kevin,
fair play.
how's things going anyway? Because I know, like, in terms of the club itself over the last few weeks, 2 events obviously in close proximity, which has, presented its challenges, but a lot of the same people have put the shoulder to the wheel and are absolutely delighted to do so, it seems, from the outside in.
Yeah, it was just the way the calendar fell this year, I suppose, that we had 2 changes of dates for the 2 events. The Moonraker was a temporary change, but it put the club under a lot of pressure, to be fair, like running 2 major championship events within 3 weeks. And as you say, it's the same people run both events, really. We kind of split the resources somewhat in the lead up to the events, but at the end of the day, it's the same pool of people. And it was a fair challenge to get the 2 events up and running in the same space of time, really. But we're nearly there with it. The Moonraker went off successful anyway, thanks be to God. I was actually away for it, but we're nearly there with the Cork 20. Everything is in place, really. We're just having our final meeting there now this evening. they're all waiting inside the room here patiently for me to come out. But yeah, no, everything's in place. A few small little bits and pieces, printing here and there to do before the weekend. But I was speaking to all the stage commanders today, and they're all happy that they've all their personnel, bails, marshals. Still looking for a couple of marshals, but in general things are looking good. Like, so that's where we are.
Yeah, I suppose, to be fair, the only thing you were missing was all the competitors that I suppose last year, I remember when there was a lot of, over many years, saying that, you know, the Cork 20 was too far out in the calendar and it was too late. And I think I even heard the word saying that this was a game changer, that competitors, I certainly overheard it from somewhere, it's a game changer to move it to a bank holiday weekend.
Yeah,
and,
it certainly was.
Yeah,
look,
it's interesting.
Look, firstly, I suppose we just want to thank everyone who has entered the rally. In fairness, look, we still have some fantastic competitors and loyal competitors, and there's going to be some great battles out there for the weekend. But yeah, I suppose, look, there's no point in saying anything else. We are a bit disappointed in the overall numbers, certainly. We did put in for a day change last year. We didn't actually specify a bank holiday weekend, but the way the calendar worked out with the new shake-up, that's the way it came. And look, we did canvass people at the time and say, look, is this a good or a bad idea? And as you say, a lot of people reference being a game changer, but unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be working out that way. And some people are saying 'tis the wrong weekend. You know, 'tis a holiday period. But as I said to a man earlier, if Donegal was running this weekend, would it be full? So I don't know. We don't understand it really.
I suppose you'll probably find it's a culmination of factors. I know certainly one of the factors that I just looked at very, very briefly, and is a bad indictment of the hotel business in this country. The price of accommodation in Cork City this weekend is shocking. I think it's absolutely shocking.
It's not just Cork City; it's shocking everywhere in the country at the moment. Yeah. I've even said it to some of the hotels that, you know, they're pricing themselves out of the market. But interestingly, I compared it versus what would have been our traditional weekend, and the difference is minuscule. Really, it's just the hotel industry now is making hay, I suppose, after the downtime. But if that's the reason, I don't know. I mean, certainly, I'd love competitors to come out and tell me, look, is this or that or whatever, like, because you can only make changes when you're aware of if there's a problem or whatever. Like, but look, that's not to take from the event that's coming up. We've 110 competitors still going to be starting the start line on Saturday morning. Top quality racing, great stages. The recce was on last weekend, and we've got nothing but positive feedback. Like, so, it's looking good. We are disappointed in the overall numbers, but we are where we are, and it is what it is, as the fella says. But
to be fair, it's always run as a very good rally, and I'm not just saying that, as you know, but the stages are excellent, the organisation is excellent, and it's just a pity the numbers. Actually, even if people wanted to anonymously put into our chat group there just what they thought maybe is the reason for the lack of numbers this time, because obviously you can't fix a problem until you figure out what it was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
look, every little bit of feedback would help.
We've tried everything at this stage. Like, I mean, the rally was always kind of said it suffered being the last round of the championship. So now we're the second last round of the championship. A lot of the championship battles are still open, and like the historics is wide open. There's a very good historic entry this weekend. The main championship is wide open. They're all down. But the modifieds, that's quite open as well at the moment. But we don't seem to have a great modified entry for whatever reason, be it holidays or whatever. We don't know. We'd certainly welcome any opinions, good or bad, as to why we're not getting the numbers. Like, but it's disappointing. Like, but look, I'm not going to harp on it. Look, it's still, there's been a massive effort by the club to put the two rallies together, particularly in such a short space of time. And like we try to raise, as you know there, Anthony, we try to raise the bar in the documents and the organisation every year. And I think we've done something similar this year. But, you know, it's up to us now to put the show on for everyone and make sure that the rally runs safe and everything. And of course, to make it run safe, we need marshals. And I know our chief marshal there has been working tirelessly on the phone for weeks. And he's, fairness, he gave me an update earlier and he's doing well, but we'll always require more marshals. So I would appeal to anyone who is out there that may be interested in doing a day or even 2 days marshalling to try and come out and help it, like, because we can't run the stages without the marshals, obviously. So I would appeal to any marshal that can do it. And we are conscious, look, it's tough times with fuel and all that. So to be fair to our chief marshal, he's got this incentive, got it sponsored by a local company, whereby there'll be 450 or fuel vouchers handed out at every stage. So you'll take the sign-on sheet, and there'll be a draw for 4 marshals, and 4 marshals in every stage will get a €50 fuel voucher. It's something small. We'd love to have more of it, but it's just a small thank you to marshals that, you know, they give up their weekends to come out and do this voluntary, like, so we would appeal to marshals to try and help us if you can, like, so.
Nice gesture, actually.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, look, if anyone wants to say it publicly on our Facebook or YouTube streams where we're live at the moment, they can work out that as well. Like, you've left no stone unturned, in fairness. You know, as you said, the championship battle is quite close across the various classes. It's something that I was actually going to say to you there, you know. And in fairness, I would say, just from a general observation, that it's an obvious combination of everything that's going on that everyone is suffering from, like with what's going on in the world, with prices of electricity, with everything. It's got to have a factor. I actually did speak to one competitor who I won't name on the show, wouldn't like that, who said it was just down to cost. Couldn't afford to go down and afford for the crew to go down and to go and compete as well, you know. So unfortunately, this has all happened, I suppose, and come to a head in the last couple of months in particular. And I would say that's probably one of the big reasons that unfortunately it's fallen foul, you know, because if you go back to like last year when the event ran and the draw and the entries and everything at the earlier part of the year, obviously that's going to probably burn out a little bit at some stage. And I think we might have thought mistakenly that this was going to carry on and keep going an upward curve. But like the money stops somewhere eventually, like, you know what I mean? So
look, we're conscious of that too.
Like,
we're conscious of that. And like one thing we've done this year, which might be the way forward if we are to stay in this state, is we were never able to do it before, but we've got access to the university college accommodation. And I was able to offer competitors very, very cheap accommodation in top quality apartments. And we kind of just threw it out there because we had spare capacity. And I put it out in Sport Titty one morning and my phone lit up with requests. And I think I'm housing about 70 competitors in there now at, I won't say the rate online, but you can ask any competitors for nothing, like, so maybe that's the way forward. You know, they were all delighted with it. So hopefully that'll work out fine.
It's a really good
and it's very central, that accommodation. It really is. It's
in the city centre, like that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
No, that's very good. It'll be interesting to see how it works out now, like, but certainly I had a big take up from competitors on that, like, so it's a fraction of the cost of staying in hotels, like, so hopefully that'll work out.
So I presume if someone even gets a notion tonight that we'll go to the Cork 20, I presume if they arrived on with a check, they can go.
Bitcoin, anything at all, we'll take it.
Anything at all, Bitcoin, that'll do.
Kevin, just very quickly before I let you go, a synopsis of where things are based out of. I know all this information is on Sporty and it's all over the gaff, but people might just be listening or viewing and might just want to know straight up. So very quickly before we let you off.
Where things are happening, basically, is it?
Yeah.
Well, the HQ is in the Radisson, obviously, a little island. The service park is down in the Cork Marts in Rathcormac, which is a fantastic facility. You probably know it, like, it's world class, like. And then the stages on the Saturday it's actually the same route as last year. Everyone liked the route, so we kept it the same. So it's 3 stages done 3 times on the east of Rathcormac. Lovely stages, nice, beautiful surface and everything. And then on Sunday, purely to make recce easier and everything, we compacted that. We normally have a 3-stage loop over there, and we compacted it into 2 stages. So we've 2 stages done 3 times. So 15 stages overall during the course of 2 days, about 231 kilometers of stages. And it's very, very easy to recce. There was one competitor did recce now last week, and he told me he did 2 passes to the recce in 1 day, and he was way up the road. I reckon it was the easiest rally he ever recce'd. So it's very competitor friendly that way, like, so. It'll be a good battle now. Like, there's obviously the top boys there they're all down to battle it out for the main championship before the Ulster. And as I said, the historic is a great entry, like, so that'll be great. And look, hopefully we might get a bit of good weather as well, like, so we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, the very best luck, Kevin, and I'll let you off to the meeting. Thanks.
Just before I go, I'd just say I'd just like to thank our own sponsors. Obviously, look, the O'Connell Group, the 2 lads are both competitors and they're out this weekend competing as well in the rally. So we'd like to thank them. And then we have associate sponsors in the Radisson and A Signs through Neil Phelan, who we all know, and like, Neil is a great supporter of Irish rallying. He puts an awful lot into the sport, so I would encourage anyone who can avail of these people's services to do so, because without these people's support, we can't rally, like, so that's what I'd say now.
Good shout.
All right then.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, best of luck.
So, Anthony, before we bring in Alan Heary in a few minutes' time, I want to read out a comment that came into our Facebook page on Messenger last week. So it goes as follows. Hi, Kevin. After the tip, stone throwers have a question and suggestion to put to Mr. Nestor, who we won't mention got called out at a driver's briefing. Wait for this. Who we won't mention got called out at a driver's briefing for being late.
I thought you weren't going to mention it. What?
Well, do you know what? Take it. He didn't say I couldn't mention it. But anyway, any chance of the podcast sponsoring him and alarm clock for being late for the driver's briefing? Anyway, we'll discard that for one moment. He said, class rally. We lost 3 stages run towards the back of the field, which caused significant delays. When a stage is lost, crews must still pull down the entrance road of the stage, clock in the time control, proceed to 500-ish meters to the stage start, get a start time, and then turn and go back the way we came and follow the alternative book to the next. What we faced was 20 to 30 cars queuing to get into the control, then to start on narrow country roads with competitors ahead coming back at us and barely squeezing by. Twice it took around 30 minutes to cover this kilometre, with the stage having long since been cancelled, so it wasn't as if it was startling delays waiting on blockages. This 1 kilometre of squeezing along, stop-start is frustrating, harsh on the clutch, and hard on keeping cars cool. What if, when a stage was cancelled, the time control and stage start came out to the head of the entrance road and crews would get their timing duties done without having to enter the access road and be along to the next stage with no fuss? Not really fuss on having this read out in the podcast, but just worth sending on to Mr. Nestor. He knows far more than us, and no idea is a bad idea. You never know. Cheers, and keep trucking with this podcast. Great entertainment. And thanks a million to our texter for sending that in. He didn't give me permission to put his name out there, so I won't do it just in case. But very, very interesting, I thought.
Yeah, well, I suppose the first thing that's interesting is the fact that he thinks I know stuff. Like, how does he know that I don't make it up? Right. We won't worry about the driver's briefing. Come back to that. I might come back to that.
We'll get you in alarm clock. Yeah.
Fucking hate it. Yeah. It wouldn't matter. I wouldn't go to him anyway. He's dead right. Okay. It's all down to a couple of things. It's down to stage selection by the organisers, that they don't select the stage with a wide enough access road, because for the most part, they don't factor in that happening, and the logistical issues are turning everybody around. The same happened in Donegal this year in Atlantic Drive, but the road was much wider, and what they did there was, obviously you had to clock into your control. You have to get a time to leave the start line so you could work out your road time to go to the next stage. He's right in what he says. I don't know, do the rules actually allow you to move the control, and then if a person misses it, which they shouldn't, well, they could always argue the point, well, it wasn't where it says on the road book. Common sense will tell you what he's saying is right. And if I were doing the job, would I go down to the main road and turn them there? Yeah, probably, if I could. He's right. The worry I would have I put it this way. If I had an issue, or I was broke down on the way to that stage, or I was trying to get around the rules for being late, I would put up the argument, well, I went to where the control book says on my road book, and the control wasn't there. So you can't penalise me for not being there because I was there. It's only, I'm only pulling straws. The common sense approach is what he said. I think if organisers, and I'll come to this in a minute now before someone shoots me for giving out about organisers, if organisers factored in on a start line, even if you have to do like Atlantic Drive, for you to drive 300 or 400 meters to a wide area. So in other words, when you left the stage start, go 100 meters, then do your U-turn and then come back. Or have it factored in, put it into your event planning, that if this stage gets cancelled, what's the easiest way to turn everybody around? Yeah, it's as simple as that, really. But now the downside then for the organisers is they would only think of that if a competitor told them. And competitors, for the most part, don't go to club meetings. So, of course, they can't advise the clubs, and the clubs don't do it. But then, of course, the other flip side of that kind of is you have some clubs that don't want the competitors. They want to do their own thing anyway. So I have no answer for it. He's
Yeah.
right in what he says. A common sense approach would be, and obviously he couldn't just, the person doing the start or doing allocating the time in the car can't just sit into the car and drive down to this road. They have to take it as a moving operation, because remember, you have 20 or 30 cars already queued up at the start, so you have to allocate them times. So all you'll be doing is allocating car 1 at a time and take 10 steps and allocate a car to time 2 and 10 steps. 15 minutes later, you may be below at the end of the road, but you'll have to be allocating times all the way down. But running from midfield back, the risk of losing stages is always high. That's why you'll see in Ireland, even though some people says, "Oh, geez, bring back the single stage." Jesus, I wouldn't bring it back in a fit. I've seen single stage. If you look at that statistic on a single stage, you might get no run if they get blockages. It's a hard one to call. I feel for the guy. People pay the same money as car 1, 2, or 22, and they may get. I've seen mini stage rallies where there should be 3 stage or 2 stages 3 times, and they may not even get 50% of the event. So he's right in what he's saying, but I don't have a fix for it per se. But that's the reason for it. Maybe if they just kept an eye on the road, keep an eye, factor it in the pre-planning of the event. Factor in, if the stage is cancelled, where will we turn everybody in the quickest means possible? I think that might help.
So all I'll say is legislation, common sense, and insurance. They're not the 3 best friends, and you won't see the 3 of them going for a pint together. That's all I'll say. It never happens. And that's understandable.
I like that turn of phrase. That's a nice turn of phrase. Yeah.
Before I bring in Alan Heary, who's backstage, I just want to get through a few comments. Paul Morris says, "Good evening, gents." He's looking on Facebook. Larry O'Shea, good friend of the podcast, on YouTube, says, "I think it's a combination of it being the bank holiday weekend." This is in reference to the Cork Country Rally, but also the time that goes into a 2-day rally for the competitor as well as cost. I'm sure anyone who did the event last year will be back. Tony O'Driscoll says on Facebook, "Championship should rotate every year. Whoever has the first round this year should be last round next year. Then every club will have a first round." So just some ideas that's coming into us on Facebook and YouTube. Keep them coming, lads. The Twitter comments, they don't actually come into the little interface that I have going on here, unfortunately. But maybe in a conversation coming up when Anthony's chatting to Alan here, I might have a quiet moment to check to see his ranting going on there. So let's bring in the aforementioned Mr. Alan Heary. How are you doing? Very welcome to the podcast.
Lads, I can't believe I'm on. Thanks a million. I really appreciate the invite. It's great.
Great to have you on. We're mad to delve into this route, and I know Anthony was touching base with Alan. You're a performance director with the MI Rally Academy, I believe, high performance director, I should say, and obviously something that you're enjoying.
Oh, absolutely loving it. I really am. We've got some brilliant drivers, and obviously we're working with the co-drivers as well very closely. And we've got a brilliant backroom team, including nutritionists like Daniel Davey and Gemma McGuinness, and you've got Kieran Conlon doing all the fitness, and John Coyne and Sean McHugh, and even Andy Walsh, who you guys know, I'm sure is in there with Leo Nolte helping out with the social media and the communication. So we've got a great backroom team working with the drivers, including the likes of Josh and William and David Kelly and Aoife. And I know you've had Aoife on as well here before, and you've got Kyle, and then you've got Patrick O'Brien, obviously, and then the co-drivers, including Ronan. You've got Owen Tracy, Sarah Lorcan Moore, and Grace O'Brien. So yeah, that's basically who's involved, and it's going really well. We're delighted.
No, I'm smiling here to myself. I says Kevin is as you can see, is in a very professional booth for sound. And your background, you're in the fitness business, and you have a bicycle and a few exercise things. And the only thing I'm looking at here is a frying pan and my dinner. It doesn't equate out to the strategic background you have. I've 2 cans of dog food in my left and a frying pan with a lunch getting ready to go shortly. But the reason, anyway, to get back, good to see you actually in the flesh. We spoke, as you know, earlier, and the reason for me sourcing out, and thanks to Sean McHugh, because that's where I kind of headed, directed by can't think, my mind has gone blank, but I come back to a second. The what's the pharmacist in Nina? Oh, she's going to kill me. Don't matter.
You'll think of it later on. It'll pop.
Noelle Horn. It was Noelle Horn.
There you go.
Absolutely got to strangle me, because I know her a great girl. But we just her and I got chatting, and I was saying I had witnessed down in the Stone Throwers Rally that there was people getting physically sick, and there was other people that were having accidents that I don't care what they say, that was out of character, that style of accident. It's like they got brain fade for a second in some cases, or they forgot to press the brake pedal at the right time. There was just accidents that just seemed. I was worrying concentration levels. If you noticed, there was people being interviewed in that, and even they wouldn't stay in the car for the interview. They were jumping out of the car and they were pulling the suits off. And I said, yeah, we need to talk to these guys. And I was in Down as well the weekend. And obviously not to the same extent. It was raining up there, but it was extremely warm. Because we did a temperature check, as I was telling you, and it was over 60 degrees in the car there at one stage in Tipperary. And I said, yeah, we need to talk to these guys about what to drink, when to start. Because there was guys just walking around and they were just out of it. They were just exhausted looking. So
yeah, we're not really used to the heat. I'm not a lover of the heat either. I'm a bit of a penguin. I prefer the cold. But when it comes to the heat, you're just talking about that. We're in Portugal. I was over in Portugal recently for the WRC over there, and the heat was so hot in the car that Paul Nagel's shoes were actually melting in the car, sticking to the bottom of the car. So, these guys have to travel for that. So when it comes to Ireland, we're certainly not used to it, but we can put strategies in place that will help. And so there's 3 parts. So when we put together a strategy for the Academy members to deal with heat, there's 3 things. 1, to acclimatize to it. So you have to kind of get used to it a little bit. And there are ways of getting used to heat. One is to use a sauna, but you can really only stay in there for 15 minutes. But the other way is actually to heat up your car. Put the heater on in your car full blast for a couple of weeks, just to kind of get you used to what it's like to be driving in that heat. So that would be a second way that was advised. I mean, you'll see the bike behind me. My sport is actually cycling. So when I have to travel overseas, like if I go to France and I'm going to do some events over there, I'm riding indoors with the heater on, just to get a feeling of what that heat is like. So that's the first thing, is to actually learn to acclimatize to it a little bit. But in Ireland, we don't tend to get huge, like we don't get weeks of it. So it kind of comes on. So that's one area. The second part is the hydration. And so a lot of guys think of hydration in terms of just drinking water. But actually, we always recommend that you have some electrolytes in with that. So something like a high 5 electrolyte that you can put into your water and drink with that. So when you sweat, you're not just getting rid of water, you're actually getting rid of salt. And in fact, you might have noticed that some of the drivers and the co-drivers might have white on their suits afterwards. And if they do, that's usually a sign that actually the salt's coming through. That's not a good sign. So we lose a lot of salt during the day. And so you have to kind of put a strategy together for the hydration. So that's the second part. And in terms of the hydration, a lot of guys wait for the day. And they say, okay, so on the day it's going to be really hot. I'm going to take 2 liters of water with me and I'm going to drink it throughout the day. But actually, you should be doing that for about a week minimum leading up to the events. So, yeah, absolutely. So you need to get used to taking in the liquids. And the other thing as well, of course, is if you're not used to drinking a lot of fluid, what happens when you get to race day and you suddenly start taking in 2 to 2.5 liters of water? Yeah, exactly. You're sitting in the car with your legs crossed, going, oh, sweet God, if I can just get through the stage and find a tree somewhere or a ditch somewhere, I'll be happy. So you have to kind of get your body used to being able to take in that fluid. And then, sorry, the third part is actually managing your core temperature, which if people are feeling dizzy or sick or they're losing concentration, that can be a sign, early signs of heat stroke coming on. And so what we do to monitor or to help manage that core temperature is not just taking in fluid, but actually using things like ice packs. So, having ice there where you can put it on your neck is a really good place to do it. Actually, under your armpits works really well. But so some guys would say, well, if we get ice and we put it into the bags, what happens if it melts? Well, you can actually get the chemical ones now. We just break open. You go into a pharmacy. Yeah, exactly. You break it. You can put it on your chest, put it on your neck, and it's just to keep the core temperature lower. And so this is a whole strategy that we would put in place. And the thing about it as well is that, I mentioned Portugal, obviously, because just with the heat over there. So we have a strategy. So if you've got the likes of Josh or William who's driving there, you'll have John Coyne, and say with Josh, you've got John Coyne and you've got Sean, who we mentioned. And they will be watching out for the signs to make sure that there's enough ice going with those guys, and the fluids are there. But you don't need to have an academy or a lot of people to do that. Your mates can remind you to drink, or you write it out on a sheet of paper and you put it somewhere where it's going to remind you to do it, even if it's only on the dashboard. Put something somewhere to remind you, and I think that's really important.
Just for as the fellow said, the ordinary man, what quantities should they be consuming? I'm only asking this even for myself. How much water?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question, and everybody's different. Okay, so the way that so for me, for example, I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm nearly sweating just with the lights on. So for me, I sweat.
I have that effect on people.
It's the pressure. It's the pressure, Anthony. That's what it is. But so for me, I sweat at the drop of a hat, right? Other guys don't sweat as much, so you kind of have to get to know. But there's a couple of things you can do. The simplest way, it's not completely accurate, but it's a really good way of knowing, is look at your pee. Basically, step out of the car, go for a pee, and if it's lighting up the whole place, that's not a good sign. The more yellow it becomes, or the more brown, if it's brown, you're in trouble. You're in deep trouble. But even if it's really dark yellow, you're completely dehydrated. And thirst is not a good way for you to suddenly go, oh, I'm thirsty, I should start drinking now, because you're already dehydrated at that stage. So the easiest thing to do, monitor your pee for color. If it's anyway dark and yellow, certainly take it in. But if you wanted to take it a bit more serious, you could actually weigh yourself in the morning or before a stage, and then weigh yourself afterwards. And so one of the things that we're doing with the drivers is getting them to wear heart rate monitors to see what their heart rate is. So, we're now looking at heart rate.
Who do you give the monitors to?
I'll give you an example. So Josh, for example, over in Portugal, he would have been wearing a heart rate monitor, and his heart rate in a car is the same as him doing a 3-kilometer run fairly hard. So that's how hard it is on the body.
The reason I asked the question was, it's not the driver has the heart failure. It's the fella sitting next to him. Out over a crest and he flat in 6th gear and goes, sweet Jesus, yeah, check his heart rate.
but actually, you bring up a valid point there as well. So a lot of the time we talk about the drivers here, all right, and we start to talk about the co-drivers. But equally, the effects, when you talk about concentration, it's actually really important that your engineers or your mechanics are drinking throughout the day and eating throughout the day. We talk about fuel. Like, okay, so I don't do rallying, right? But if I came to you and I said, right, I want to rally next week, and you gave me some advice, and I came out on the day and I said, I ran out of fuel halfway through the stage, you'd call me an idiot, like. And yet we do this with our bodies all the time. So a lot of the time in rallying, what we find is that there's a huge amount of focus on the car, rightly so. But equally, there's a brain inside that car and a body inside that car that has to drive it. So you have to fuel that body and that mind fairly well for the day as well. So that's why we look at it from a performance point of view. And so it's not just the driver, but the co-driver is really important, and anybody who's working with it. And that it doesn't matter whether you're on the international stage or you're going to a local rally and you got a couple of mates coming down to help you. It really doesn't matter. It's just the way that our mindset goes into it. You can bring a pro level mindset into anything. You don't need to be.
I suppose even look at the we were saying about the quantities of water. I don't think did we clarify the quantity, or can we? Is it possible if we said 2 liters a piece on the day of the recce, 4 liters a piece, 2?
Yeah,
2.
No, I'd be saying minimum 2, and
minimum 2.
So I'd be saying a minimum 2. Having said that, if you find that you're sipping 2 liters of water throughout the day, and your pee is still not clear, then you need to up it. That's kind of what we're saying. But I'm saying minimum 2, but there are guys out there that would easily take in up to 3 liters within the day. So I would say a nice benchmark is 2 liters, but you need to get used to drinking that.
But start a couple of days in advance, or certainly be on the recce, sipping it constantly, keeping it into you. You mentioned the electrolytes, which, to be fair, I've tried the electrolytes and they're absolutely rotten.
Horrible.
I'd rather be drinking the pee that comes out than them bloody things. So is there any such thing as an electrolyte that's nice? Or there is?
Yeah, well, there is, but you have to find them. So it's like anything. You just got to you got to do the taste.
Trial and
You,
error.
you got to do the taste test, and actually, there's some
Yeah.
you can get with some caffeine in them as well. So
Yeah.
depending on how I feel on the bike. Now, the other thing I can do is I don't like the taste of some of them, so I'll take a drop of orange my wadi, and I'll put a drop of orange my wadi in, so just to give it a little bit of a different taste. So I'll take I'd say a 500 milliliter bottle. I'll have water in it. I'll have my electrolyte in it. And if I feel that I want to change the taste a little bit, I'll use a little bit of my wadi in on top of it.
Another question, just as I have you on, as I said, I've been dying to get someone like you on to ask these questions. One other question, and we came upon it in the Down Rally. Now, people would laugh at us, Stuart Biggerstaff and I, we would be loved Haribo's Jelly Babies. Now, we have our own private little joke for the Haribo's Jelly Babies, but that's for another day. But we get such a sugar rush from them, and we can now, I suppose after whatever 15 years together, I can know by looking at him he needs a sugar fix, and vice versa. And we were just asking around the weekend to different competitors, have you any little sucky sweet or something? And some people did, more people didn't. There was glucose sweets, Ian Dixon kindly given, chewing gum, and we got fruit pastilles, we got lots of bits. But what would you recommend just for a little sugar rush?
Haribo sounds amazing. Honestly, they work really well. Jellies are quite good because you've got that rush of sugar. There's things that we use in endurance sports. They're called shots. You can buy them in cycling shots, and again, they're a jelly, but they're a fairly high concentrate of carbohydrate and sugar mix in it. But the jellies do work. But again, look, if you want to build your confidence coming into an event, if you want to be really confident on any event you're coming into, you know yourself, it's all about preparation and the planning. So therefore, it's looking and deciding what are you going to have to eat the day before, because it's the day before that's going to give you the energy for the next day. And then on the day itself, just making sure that you have breakfast. You might take in some carbohydrate, you might take a porridge if you like it. So you're going to do that. You're going to make sure that you're drinking throughout the day. Some of the guys, what they'll do is they'll have a bar, like an energy bar. And it's you can take those because they're easier to digest sometimes. And others like the gels. So you can actually take a gel, you just rip the top off and squeeze a gel in. And it's a high carbohydrate fix.
They're the caffeine gels, Alan, yeah?
Some of them are caffeine, others you can get them with or without caffeine. So you can get them just as a carbohydrate gel.
No, that all sounds lovely. And got it to be fair, and I know you're right now. But speaking now to my equals, who likes the jumbo breakfast roll and the big mug of coffee, I take it that on the recce morning is a no. What I'm trying to say is, what would you recommend? Obviously, that ain't right. What I'm saying, of course. But
after you answer that, Alan, I have a question for you, just kind of half based on what Anthony's saying as well. So go on ahead first and answer that.
What would you recommend? So we're down to do the recce, and we bring the driver out, and we say, right, come on, we'll go for the cup of coffee, the 11 o'clock coffee. What could you start that?
Scrambled egg, couple of slices of toast. Or you can, scrambled egg, couple of slices of toast, or even a scrambled egg and a piece of bacon and a couple of slices of toast, brown toast. All good.
Can you guilty pudding? No?
So throw it together, make a sandwich of it. There's your breakfast roll right there.
So you can just egg and toast, or
you get egg and toast, or some people like porridge. You can mix porridge with, put a little bit of fruit in it, and mix it up and have it that way. So that'll kind of start the day. During the day, then you might decide you're going to bring something with you, like you're going to have whether it's a pasta, like a pasta salad with some tuna in it. So you're constantly trying to take in a little bit of protein in terms of chickens, tunas. They're all good for giving you protein throughout the day. Anything around your pasta or a little bit of rice is really good for giving you some energy through the day. So that's the type of thing you'd be doing. The other thing I'd say to you is just don't get hungry. So we know some people don't particularly like eating, especially if we're under pressure. So we're actually looking and experimenting with liquid food rather than just using solids all the time. So if you've got somebody that doesn't like taking in solid food, you can actually take in some liquid food in terms of, it's a high calorie mix. But again, right, it all depends on what you want to get out of it. You know, I'm not a particularly good cyclist, but I still take it fairly serious. I still like going out and taking my gels and doing what I would do with my professional cyclists, because I work with many sports, including professional boxers, professional cycling. So I still like taking it to that level. You don't need to take it to that level. It's just that if you want to, if you think, do you know what, I wouldn't mind experimenting with the sports science a little bit, eating what they actually recommend, and see how I feel after the rally. But the last little thing I'll say, sorry, Kevin, I know you want to ask me a question, but the other thing, the last little thing I'm going to say on that as well is, don't take anything at the rally that you have not previously taken. So the worst thing that could happen here this evening is that somebody will listen to me and go, oh my God, okay, I'm going to start taking gels on the day. I'm going to start taking the wine gums or the jellies. I'm going to eat the porridge in the morning. I'm going to, and completely change everything they've done. That's the worst thing you can do, because you don't know how your body's going to react to it. So that's why you start trying those things out before you even get there. So that would be my advice. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, it was kind of linked into what Anthony was saying. It's something that struck me previously. I can't think of what particular sport it was, but it was something that involved having a beverage the night before and putting their success the following day down to having the beverage. And if they didn't have the beverage, then, you know, they didn't believe that they were going to perform well and tried without having the beverage. Obviously, you can hear alcohol. But their psyche wouldn't allow them to go otherwise, because that had worked for them previously. So, like, what my question is basically is, it's an accumulation. I was actually going to say, having, I suppose, worked with sport teams previously, that you'd always be telling them not to do anything differently when it comes to maybe a high pressure situation. Just keep doing the things you always do. And because that is not the day to experiment. But for someone of a kind of a rigid mind, I suppose, and I think one of the best examples we could give here, and I'm pretty sure I would be on the money with this, Anthony, would be Gary Kieran, maybe, who would have the can of Red Bull and might smoke a cigarette in between a stage or something like that, right? Like, the actual balance of all that, I think, is very, very interesting. And knowing the individual, which you obviously do, you get to know the individual and then you give the advice based on that. And I can only imagine that does differ from person to person. So I know I don't have a direct question in there, and I'm kind of talking at you as much, but you
no. I see exactly where you're coming from, Kevin. So let me break it down a little bit. Number one, you're absolutely right. So one of our goals with the academy is to get to know each of the drivers and each of the co-drivers. So when the nutritionist works with them, they work based on what foods do you actually like. That's where it starts. The nutritionist doesn't go in and go, eat this. And it's one of the things that sometimes that can be difficult to get across to people, that it takes time to actually develop. We try not to give a one size fits all, because that doesn't work. So it is down to the individual. So you're right on that. On the second thing, or the first thing you actually mentioned, which is if the guy doesn't have the beverage the night before, it affects his mindset. Well, I have two hats on this. One is I'm the high performance director, but actually I specialize in the mental fitness training. And so you're 100% right. But that's like the guys with the lucky T-shirt. Yeah, you know, I always have a lucky T-shirt, or they always put the left shoe on before the right, and all of those things. But when it comes to your lucky T-shirt, this is going to sound really bad, but you're nearly better off burning it. And the reason why you're better off burning it is the T-shirt is outside your control. And what I mean by it's outside your control is if you suddenly lose the T-shirt, then you go, oh no, this is going to be bad. And what happens with somebody who's rigid about, I have to take this beverage or I don't perform the next day, is if they don't get the beverage, they talk themselves out of the performance. So by the time they actually arrive, they arrive and they're 2 minutes late getting to the place, or somebody stops them on the way in, or they get a puncture on the way there and they go, I knew today was going to be a bad day.
Yeah,
and we do this, and like we talk ourselves out of our events and out of our performance before we even get to the place sometimes. So for me, it's about process. It's control the controllables. What can you control going into the next event? And that's kind of how
you segued me nicely there, by the way, because the other question I had was in relation to another thing Anthony said about a co-driver and their heart rate, right? So a co-driver can't actually really control the direction of the car, obviously. He's not driving the car. So would you feel, I suppose, having monitored co-drivers as well, is a lot of their root cause anxiety coming from the fact that they actually cannot really control what's happening in the car from a driving point of view, even though they have so much of an influence in terms of directing the driver?
I think for me, where I look at this is the development of the team. So the team is really important. So how much you actually trust your co-driver, and how much does the co-driver trust the driver, and that's built up over a little bit of time. So that reduces the anxiety a little bit. The other thing is that if you get the co-driver who's really focused, which they are, on what they're doing, that's their level of control. So they may not be controlling the drive, but they're still doing something. They still have control over what they're actually doing, and so that can help reduce the anxiety a little bit. So as far as I'm concerned, they have their own role, and as long as they know what their role is and they're focused on that, it does help with reducing the anxiety. But it's all down to how much you trust each other, and that's what we're looking at developing as well. Is how do we develop trust within the team?
Here's another question for you, just on obviously without mentioning brand names: energy drink or water?
Energy drink or water? I would say, if you're talking energy as in a Red Bull, or if you're talking energy drink as in...
I couldn't mention a brand without
mentioning
the other 300. But yes, we're on the right track. We're on
there's a caveat with that question, though, Alan. And you should really specify when, at what particular time is it energy drink versus
it's
water.
only when you mention Gary, and I know he won't mind us saying it, and he's not alone. If you're arriving up to the control, the amount, I will say we were all very environmentally friendly now. The amount of Red Bull cans you see in the dustbin at the start line.
Okay, so that's an energy. So there's two types of energy drink that I see. The first is the caffeine-based energy drink, which is what we actually mentioned there. And the second is the electrolyte, the likes of the other brands that has all the little salts. So that's an electrolyte drink. If you've only got water or you've got a choice for an electrolyte, you'd probably go with the electrolyte. With other ones, that's caffeine stimulant. You just have to be there. There's no doubt that caffeine improves our mental ability. It actually improves our concentration. There's no doubt about that. We know it can improve performance up to 10%, depending on how much you take and the type of individual you are. So I don't drink coffee. It's just I don't like the taste of it. I've never liked the taste of it as much as I've tried to drink the stupid thing, because if you're a cyclist, you should be drinking coffee, right? It's the one thing, right? But I don't like the taste of it. So I take caffeine sometimes either in a tab or in a gel. And I'm wired because I don't drink coffee, because I don't drink caffeine on a daily basis. So it kind of depends on the individual. If you've got somebody who drinks regular caffeine, you don't really get the same effect from a stimulant out of it as you would do if you really didn't. Like if you reduce the amount of coffee that you're taking for a week, let's say, coming into an event, and you suddenly drink a coffee or something with caffeine in it, that will actually give you a little bit of a boost. So that's how that works.
The advice is whatever works for you. As I said, the whole aim of this is when you see guys being interviewed that are actually getting physically sick at the start and finish at the stages because of the heat. And they didn't realize at the time, but you can see in reflection, that's exactly what it was. To try and mitigate against that going forward. As I said, look, the climate in Ireland is changing. You can see that over the last couple of years, and there's going to be more of these events, which is very hot. Now, certainly the modern cars aren't so bad in that normally you could have 3 roof vents and you'll have a vent on the door. But some of the cars, in the midfield or whatever, they don't have all those little ties trying to blow cold air in you.
And you've got the exhaust then shifted over underneath the co-driver seat.
Yes, something we were doing today, with the melted feet. Even in the down rally the weekend now, I remember saying to Stuart that the floor was getting really hot. I could feel it on my heels all day. Another thing that I would like to mention, I don't know whether Alan has any knowledge on this or whatever, but I noticed, and it was only in Clonmel, and I noticed it because obviously it was exceptionally warm, the amount of guys using different types of race suits, and maybe in some cases slightly older race suits, and certainly older underwear brands. And I'm wrong to say they're wool, they're obviously Nomex, but they're very heavy materials. Certainly when their suits or whatever are coming up for renewal, I know I would be advising, and if Alan or someone can lend a bit of weight to this, if I'm wrong, please stop me. I'd be saying, start planning your next suit now. As in, think the lightweight, think like 250 grams per meter light. Underwear, like there's 2 or 3 brands out there at the minute. Obviously, I'm not going to state the brand names, but there's 2 or 3 that do an ultralight. Now, there might only be 20 quid in the difference. But the difference it made is certainly we were in Clonmel. We did our best, Owen and I, the day before. We drank loads of water. We have lightweight suits. We had lightweight stuff. We didn't have an issue with the heat, and there was people really struggling. So that's what kind of highlighted this to me, the suit and your clothing. Again, it's a bit like preparation. No, we're not telling fellas to go out and spend 700, 800, 900 euro on a suit tomorrow. But, when your suit expires or you feel that you've washed it enough of times that it's not flame retardant anymore, keep that in mind to get something a bit lighter.
Anthony, when I came into Rally first, so a couple of years ago when I came in to look at this, I was coming from other sports. And so there's 2 things for me. One is I love coming into a sport like this where I'm going, I don't know as much about it as you guys. But the other thing is I don't mind looking stupid. So I kept asking question after question, and some of them were related to the gear. Why do we use these shoes? What's the difference between what suit he's wearing and what suit they're wearing? Because in other sports like that, especially the endurance things like cycling, it's very important for us, the gear. So you're 100% right. The technology has been changing over the years. I would say definitely, and it's okay. So it's a little bit of expense. If you can afford it, it's worth doing. If it's something that you enjoy doing and it makes you feel better coming into it, absolutely go for it. So I would be looking at, I'd be looking at every piece of technology, even as you say, the undergarment. The undergarment can make a big difference. So you can get some of the undergarments that will wick the sweat. So they'll take the sweat away from the body really quickly. That's kind of what you're looking for as well. And then the suits, and obviously you guys know far more about the different types of suits that are out there than I do. All I can tell you is that I would be looking to say, if I was changing tomorrow, what's the best suit? Because chances are it's going to last you a number of years anyway, and it might be a good investment. So yeah, I would be looking at the technology, definitely.
Alan, you've been brilliant with your time, but I have one more question for you. I present the Irish F1 show as well, and we quite regularly talk about Lewis Hamilton and Angela Cullen and the relationship between them two. And I know we had a great debate among ourselves on the programme one evening about how much she actually does. And I suppose without getting into the party politics of it all, one of the lads thought maybe, was it a little bit out of order to have her carrying all the stuff while he's floating around beside her on the scooter? And I won't mention the term that one of the lads used to describe that. But in general, I always think their relationship is quite an interesting one, and how much he seems to rely on her. And then if you look at the results that he's had over such a long period of time, you think, well, why change it? But he seems so reliant on her, but she's obviously very good at what she does as well. Where do you see that relationship? I'd be just interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, there's a couple of things, when somebody else is carrying the gear and that, we have a saying, in especially in the endurance events, is if you can sit down, don't stand, and if you can lie down, don't sit. So it's all about recovery, and it's all about energy expenditure. What are you expending the energy on in the day? And that can range anything from what I have to think about. So think about it, if you wake up in the morning, you've got a full battery. As you do things during the day, the battery goes down. When you take a little bit of rest, it goes back up. It'll never go back up here. So things like carrying your own gear. Now, this is going to sound like lads are going, oh, for God's sake. But you've asked me on the highest level, okay? So let's talk about the highest level. Generally speaking, if I'm working with a professional cyclist, let's take a different sport. So if we're working professional cyclists, they don't carry their bags to the room. We do that. They don't do the laundry. We do that. They don't fill their own bottles. We do that. So this is what happens at that level. And so what needs to change sometimes is the mindset when we come in. So when we suddenly go, we'll do that. We'll take that off you. And that's going, oh no, I like to carry my own. That's fine. But I'm looking at the energy expenditure during the day. So I think that relationship, it seems to work really well for them. Why not? And that would be there
was the high performance level versus the human level. So when the boy said, if you were walking down the street and there was a lady beside you, he was inundated with stuff like a rucksack or whatever and all, that you might go over and say, look, I'll take that off you there. And that's not to get into sexism or anything. It's just kind of a mannerly thing that we've come to know over a large period of time. So
Yeah,
people
but
were
she might have easily turned around and said, "If you take this bag off me, I'll break your arm." Like, so you don't know what. Like that's just and you know that's maybe she takes the role really serious, and that's what she wants to do, and this is how she sees part of her role, and so that's how it is. You know, that's just the way it is in sport. We all help one another out in this, and you have to go again with what people like and what they don't like.
I'm thinking of I'm thinking of our contributors before we came on tonight. I was going to say Declan Crawford. Yeah, I keep mixing up Brian Crawford and Kevin O'Riordan from Cork. I must think the next time I'm competing there, when I arrive into the rally office, and I drop all my bags on the floor, and I just tell them, "Come here, I need someone to carry them." And what I will do is I'll bring Alan back this time next year, and I'll do a video shot of what actually happens next, a bit like the Joe Duffy show. Because I can just imagine dropping my bags in front of either of them too. I'd be wearing them as I left through the window.
I'm gonna. Yeah, let me reiterate this. All right, you have to do what works for you. And it's just when it comes to the high performance, we're looking at every small, tiny little increment. What are the small changes that we can make in many different areas that will make the biggest difference? And it's all that to do with energy. And so, you know, when I've worked with cyclists who've done, say, Race Across America, which is 3,000 miles long, and they come up at the start and they go, "So what should I do about my GPS or my Garmin or my bags?" And I'm going, "Your job, ride bike, our job, everything else." So that's your job. And so the more you want to focus on the event, and this is entirely up to people, but your job, drive car, our job, everything else. And so
I'll rephrase that for you, because what I say to drivers is, you steering wheel attendant, me everything else. So a friend of mine down here in Kilmallock, James Murphy, we patented that phrase about 20 odd years ago. You steering wheel attendant.
I love that.
Don't get involved in anything else. That's all you do. Keep playing with that thing. And just a quick one as well for you. The night before a rally, we all don't, but we tend to go for the steak when we're in the restaurant. We tend to go down to the Chinese and fill up on that. Good or bad? I know we should be probably having pasta. Eating a heavy steak the night before you compete, it would be quite popular.
Yeah, a lot of these things I would have done for years as well. The mindset's changing a little bit. The science is changing a wee bit on it. Eating, it depends on how it affects you. Okay, so if you're eating late in the evening and you go to bed and your body is still trying to digest it and you're not getting the sleep when you should, then obviously that's a bad decision to make. Yes, the pasta is fine. Yes, the steak if it works for you, but you'll get some people who do what we call carbo loading. They think at the last minute, if I can just bang all this carbohydrate into me the night before, I'll be fine. I'll have loads of energy tomorrow. It can work against you a little bit. So again, I know it sounds like I'm just saying it's individual, but it is in a sense. If I ate a lot of steak and a lot of pasta the night before, late in the evening, I'd run into serious issues with my performance the next day. But I know that through years of doing it, eating steak and pasta the night before and getting up the next day going, I don't know what's wrong with me. So I'd say if it feels right, that's okay. But we would generally tend to say the food should be taken in earlier. If we can, smaller snack later on, keep the liquid coming in then throughout the day. And you're better off in that way. That's what we'll be looking at.
Good stuff.
Very good.
Alan, a pleasure. Really enjoyed that.
That was interesting.
For a chat at another point.
Going on now.
Really good with your time.
No worries. Anytime, lads. Honestly, anytime. Just give me a bell and I'd come on. If you have any questions on anything,
appreciate that, and I appreciate taking the call from me yesterday. So yeah.
I appreciate what you guys are doing as well, because I have listened to the podcast. Obviously, listen to try and get as much information about rallying as possible. Where else to get it? You guys. So fair play. All right.
Thanks a million, Alan.
Keep it up, lads.
All the best. Cheers, Alan Healy. Really interesting. I know you're very interested in the nutritional side. The actual mental fitness side is very interesting from my point of view. I think it's so relevant, so important. Yeah.
No, it bothered me just from a safety perspective. That when you see people just exhausted and in the heat, and you'll be just trying to say, all right, okay, how can we fix this? What action plan can you put in place to try and improve them? And in a lot of cases, in these last 2 weeks, they didn't even know what was wrong with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, if
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. So what do you say? 2 litres of water each on the recce. Very simple, isn't it?
Yeah. Look at
minimum. That's
look at
minimum
the
4 litres.
Yeah.
Well, now you see, if you're a fuller man like me, when you look down, you may not be able to see anything. Like, that's a plan for all the slim fellas. They can look down and observe all that.
I didn't really want to say this now, but he was talking about lightweight this and lightweight that, and he said, "Well, lads inside in the car want to be lightweight too now. It'd be an important factor." But that's not throwing. I suppose comments on anyone in particular. But there's a T-shirt sent down to you, and I haven't seen you wearing it once. And I know there was
sending me down in medium now with some waste of time. Like,
give the people what they want, Anthony. Give the people what they want. Seeing you in a tight fit T-shirt like that, boy, I tell you, I can picture it now. Anyway, just very quickly, come here before we finish up. I want to just give a quick rundown on where things are in terms of the Tarmac Championship. James Stafford, in terms of the modified, 44 points, 36 to Colin Byrne, both on the entry list for the weekend. The entry list itself, that's up on Facebook on the Munster Car Club /Cork 20 International Rally. There has been a few withdrawals from that, just of note from today. Desi Henry, Garrett McHale, Gary Kiernan, Keith Lyons, Eugene Meagan, Marty Toner, Shane Quinn, Fergal Kelly, Aoife Raftery, Darren Hayes and Aaron Doran pulling out. In late entries, Dave Dunn and Barry McIntyre and the juniors. No one gone out of the historics, interestingly. And I do know Brian Duggan of Rally.ie was in touch a little bit earlier as well with a nice little graphic just giving us a little insight into where things are with drop rounds. So Craig McWilliam on 46 points, Baron Richards on 41, Luke McCarthy on 51, and with the drop rounds, obviously a lot of things kind of change and all that, and it's hard to keep up with everything. But Morris Mescal on 50. I was reading that the wrong way. Sorry, I put line 1 as the lad leading it. Luke McCarthy leads, I should say. Then Morris Mescal on 50. And then on 48, you have Neil Williams, Duncan Williams on 45.
Yeah, it's going to be a good battle.
Yeah, and I'm just going back to the co-driver's point of view. I think I'm reading this correct now, and I apologise if I'm getting something arseways, but Brian will tell me straight away. Anthony Sullivan appears to be leading the way there. Guy McWilliams second, Ashley Trimble third. The WhatsApps are buzzing. I'm after making an arse, what I'd say. But it is tight anyway, just to confirm. And I apologise again if I mixed that up a little bit. The juniors, Ryan McHugh leading the way there on 58. And obviously in the Tarmac Championship itself, Josh Moffat has a lead of, it's a 79 points he's on. Marion Evans, 52. Ali Fisher on 47. Colin Devine, 41. Now obviously there's a few bits and pieces to sort out throughout that as well. Brian Duggan is in touch with me. Have I read that out? No, spot on, says he. Who was I to doubt his Excel sheet? In fairness, no better vocal. But yeah, some of them are quite tricky to read with the drop rounds and all. It can get a little bit confusing. So we want to say thanks to Brian for sorting us out with that. So basically, Anthony, long story short, just by no means any kind of I suppose clarity on any of this. Like, this could change over the course of the weekend, and with another round to come as well. And I believe Ulster has a few big names already after committing to that. So we have a nice bit of competing to do yet before we have a clearer picture, don't we?
Yeah, the historic battle sounds fun, and that would be Luke McCarthy's part of the world as well. Like, so it'd be nice. And we've Morris Mescal, a Limerick man, so we've a Cork man and a Limerick. That's some All Ireland final, all right, isn't it?
It is indeed. It is indeed. Any other little takeaways before we conclude this evening?
No, I think so. No, that was it. Actually, one little thing.
Historic score. Brian is just informing. I should have mentioned that because he said to me already. Historic score points on each day in Cork.
Split up studios. Your asked was the one other little thing. I didn't even have this noted. Just a little observation I've noticed. I did an event in Carlow with an old friend, Jim Harrison. I was giving him a shout out. Great character, back rallying after such a layoff. And I did the Clonmel rally. And I noticed during the event, and this obviously is coming from, I doubt it's the club. It must be some, I don't know where this is coming from. But anyway, the arrows they're using on the stages are only 50% of the size of arrows that would be normally used. All I would say to you is, we can't see them. Get rid of them. Put them in the bin. I saw them. I'd never seen them before until I saw them in Carlow, I think. And they weren't on all the stages, which was like when you were approaching at high speed, that there was no arrow there. And the yellow 100-meter arrow is great to judge your braking distance for the corner because that is specifically measured. So if you come in an R5, well, you need to go in past that yellow arrow on full throttle if everything else is right, weather is right, and so on. So it's a great benchmark. But these were so small you couldn't see them. They were literally, and I made a point of looking at them at one particular point. It was safe to do so, approaching. They were tiny. And I know it was, other people had mentioned it, and they says, yeah, we need to get on top of this. And next thing I saw them again in Clonmel. So all I'd be advising, wherever they're coming from or who the hell ever owns them, get rid of them because they are too small. Tiny little things. Keep them for sheep racing up the mountain somewhere. Do what you like with them. But
yeah, couple of comments coming in. Keith McFadden said, very good, Alan, thank you. And Ronan Comerford, of course, with the academy, very much involved, has said, eating light during an event with plenty of fluid, I find works for me. Through the MI Rally Academy, I've learned this, and it helps for better performance. So there's a nice little indictment from Ronan. Yeah, a couple of housekeeping things before we finish up. I was doing a bit of homework, Anthony, over the last couple of days, just to see where the podcast is at in terms of like analytics and different things like that. And it occurred to me that we're listened to in over 45 countries across the world, which I thought was phenomenal going. I was really, really pleased to
countries
see that.
Or counties?
Countries.
Jesus, they can't hardly understand me. They don't understand me outside Limerick, and you're telling me there's someone from Australia listening or something?
Well, do you know what? Not just Australia. We had all kinds of places: Vietnam, Slovakia, the Maldives, Indonesia, Chile, Brazil, Hungary, South Africa, the Philippines, Egypt, South Korea, Japan, Paraguay. Mad stuff, Ted. Mad stuff.
Oh, from Russia, no?
Yeah, there was actually. Yeah, there was. So no, that's really cool to see, and obviously delight with that as well. Just before we finish up, Anthony, as well, it would be remiss of us not to pay tribute to Paddy Hopkirk and the family. Victory, of course, in the 64 Monte Carlo Rally, winning the Acropolis as well, and 5-time Circuit of Ireland winner, inducted into the Rally Hall of Fame in 2010, and an MBE in the 2016 New Year's Honours List. So I would like to pay our respects there.
Yes, actually, he was out, wasn't he? Out as and someone correct me quickly if I'm wrong. Was he not out in the Donna Deja Vu above in Donegal Town?
I'm pretty sure a couple of those Deja events. I'm fairly sure. Yeah.
I think Plum Tyndall said he was a great supporter of that, and I'm pretty sure I saw him at some of them. So I didn't know the chap personally, but everybody, I suppose, look, it's a great indictment of any person when nobody has a bad word to say about you. And everybody seemed to hold him in great respect, and he was held in high esteem everywhere. So that's a good indictment of anybody.
It is indeed, Anthony. A pleasure to have you on and have a chat again this evening.
No bother.
We'll chat again next week when we're reviewing.
Next week after the Cork 20, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So until then, mind yourself. And just to say thanks to Tree Rock, our sponsors, Display Signage Brandon, they've been with us for the Tarmac Championship. If anyone did want to get in touch with us regarding sponsorship, you can just drop us a line on Messenger, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, where we are. You can also email us irishrallypodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, as we said, we're back again next Tuesday. We'll be reviewing all of this. Plenty more to get through over the duration of the year as well. We do have some exciting plans for next year, which we're looking forward to getting through as well. And just to say that if you are enjoying the coverage, if you appreciate what we do, you can support us for the price of a coffee. There's a Buy Me Coffee link in the description below, not compulsory. And a few people actually have done that over the previous few episodes, and we just want to say thanks. That's much appreciated. And until next time, our listeners, our viewers, our guests, thanks a million. And we look forward to chatting to you all again, as we said, next Tuesday. Best luck to everyone in Cork this weekend. And until next week, take care.